This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by The Automatic Age, launching in Winnipeg April 15th at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Every book sold will come with a free piece of art by yours truly, GMB Kamichuk.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I'm here with my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry, also known as Chasing Artwork Online, and our producer, Dan Vadeboncoeur. Man, Justin has been into another country and back since last we spoke on the podcast. I've been to another mental country and back, the world of academia, since last we spoke on the podcast. And we're going to talk to you about a bunch of different stuff. But before we do any of that, I want to know, Chicago, Justin, was it full of virus fears?
No, that was definitely something on my mind going to C2E2. World events, if you're listening to this podcast in the far future, when everybody's talking about the beginning of end times or how everybody freaked out and it turned out to be nothing, which I hope it's the latter. I really hope it's the latter, yeah. But yeah, coronavirus is a thing these days, and everybody's a little on edge, and so C2E2 is a big gathering of people in Chicago, so I was a little concerned about, people not showing up to the event or, just, skipping it for a year kind of thing.
Right.
However, it was a great convention. Attendance seemed the same as far as I could tell. My sales went great. People were talking about it, but it didn't seem to affect the show in any way that I could see. But keep in mind that I'm kind of stuck behind my table the whole show, and I don't get to see everything.
One thing we mentioned during the before you got here, Dan, was that on comics Twitter, people talking about not attending the show, like comics professionals that said, I'm a little under the weather, I have a flu or I have a cold or whatever. People who normally would be tweeting like, but I'm coming anyway, I'll try not to shake anyone's hand. Instead, we're saying, so I'm not going to go. I'm sure it's nothing, but what if it was something and then I'm that guy, right?
They don't want to be the vector point.
Yeah, they don't want to be the vector point. So it was interesting that it was like the discussion is there about these large group gatherings and how that all works. And some people changing their behavior, but it didn't affect the overall show.
However, my next show, I go to Seattle, which is, there's been confirmed cases there. So I think if this is going to be affecting our convention season, I'll probably see it there.
You didn't see in Chicago no masks at all? No, none of that stuff?
Not even in the airport.
No, eh? Okay,
yeah.
It's interesting because you think you'd see it in the airport if you're going to see it anywhere.
So in the future, the audio archaeologists right now are like, oh, guys, should have known better. They didn't even have their masks on yet?
I was just wondering about this because here in Winnipeg, there's been a run on hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have noticed that or not. But
we have some, but yeah.
I overheard somebody at Shoppers Drug Mart today talking about how they're out and they have had so many people asking about it. So in other places, my brother lives in Japan, which is much, much closer to the center point of this. And he says for some reason toilet paper is hard to find.
And in Australia as well.
Is that really?
Yeah, Australia's freaking out in the same way.
I don't know
about toilet paper.
Yeah.
What are they doing differently?
I don't know.
What do they know that we don't?
Well, I mean, he says it's people who have experienced events like this before. They remember there not being any toilet paper, so they went out and they stocked up on toilet paper, which is in turn causes the shortage. So it's kind of an endless loop.
Okay, wait, but I know this has nothing to do with genre, but
well, this could be the beginnings of a story for all we know.
Yeah, it could. But is that because you're staying home more?
Yes, I believe so.
Right, so that's all that is.
If you get all your kind of staples and kind of stock up, then you don't have to go out to the store where there's all these germ-infested people. Although I guarantee you in Japan and other countries near China, they're all wearing masks in the streets. So that's something that's very common out there. Even before this happened.
That was just a way. Yeah.
I remember having a student come to class once. He was from China, and he was wearing a mask, and it was so he didn't get other people sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it's been explained to me also from people. They're like, oh, no, I'm not wearing the mask because I'm worried about you. I'm like, what if I'm sick? Then you won't get it.
Yeah, that's really what it is. But now, of course, everyone's paranoid about getting sick. So
I've also heard it explained that most people don't know how to properly use those masks. So they become basically like virus sponges. And every time they touch them, they're getting like condensed bacteria on their hand, and then they're touching things. So in a lot of cases, when you don't use them properly, they end up being worse.
Did you guys see the beard?
There's your heavy dose of fear mongering.
Did you see the beard chart that came out a little while ago? I have a beard, so it wouldn't work for me anyway. But there was a facial hair chart showing which types of facial hair work best with these masks. This is from the CDC.
Oh,
the CDC released it. Which ones work best? And they actually had a mustache categorized as villain. Villain style. They had one that said villain style mustache. It's the long curly mustache, and that was actually on this. And say if you have a villain style mustache, you are quite all right. You can wear a mask, no problem.
The villains.
I just wanted someone to create a story in which the villains are all getting together and like discussing their facial
hair. So interesting. Okay, so from a genre gets made standpoint, how many science fiction or horror conventions are based around an outbreak scenario?
Oh yeah,
so many.
There's so many different. Like even going back to the Day of the Triffids, which is one of our favorites, and I've got your poster. It's like I don't know if it's not necessarily an outbreak. It's just everybody goes blind at the same time. That's what happens. It's a meteor shower. Everyone looks at the meteor shower and they all go blind. So it's kind of like a virus.
And then
outbreak.
the carnivorous plants come from
them. They come out, and those I don't know if those are from a different planet or whatever, but there are a lot of different stories that do follow that kind of template. And I think they're really interesting stories. It's like, what do you do? What do you do when it's the end of the world? Right?
And they're really asking, what do you do when everything you take for granted is gone?
That's it, right?
Yeah.
You can't get hand sanitizer anymore.
No.
No toilet paper, no hand sanitizer. No government control whatsoever.
When we had boil water advisory a couple of years back,
that's right.
There was a run on bottled water. Like I went to the store, there's no bottled water in the store.
Beaver fever, remember them? That was 94.
That sounds like something else. That sounds like a bad.
You can
movie.
Google it, but
I'm not gonna Google
you take
that.
your chances. Wild. So, dear listener, that's what's happening in Winnipeg right now.
And around the world.
Audio archaeologists from the future, we should have known better. We're sorry. So, you were in Chicago.
Yes.
Poor Drake had a bad run of luck. So, if he's listening to this, we won't go into the story, but I just want you to know, Drake, Justin told me the story. Quirkalicious, my heart is with you. I'm sorry that happened to you.
Maybe he can tell it on a future episode.
He'll tell it on a future episode.
I was conceived in the Riviera. Not the French Riviera. The Detroit variety.
So one of the things that we were going to talk about today is the difference between method and result.
So when I'm at conventions, sometimes I always have my sketchbook kind of behind my table, because that's always when I have my good ideas for like pieces to do next and projects and whatever. It's when I'm away from potentially working on those things that you always come up with a list, right? And I have a podcast list of like when things happen at shows, I'm like, oh, I should bring this up on the podcast. We should talk about it.
Right.
So what happened this weekend was I have this, what's his company name? Pascal Productions.
I know that name.
He does watercolor artwork, and it's amazing. And he's like traditionally trained, and he works traditionally, and then he makes prints of it, and it's stuff looks very, very cool, very stylized.
A real artist,
yeah. And he had a gallery show recently, and it looked amazing, and everything like great, and very nice guy as well. So a couple rows away from him at this convention was a splatter filter artist.
Oh, no.
And for those of you who don't know, this was kind of it was a filter that kind of made its way around the internet. You could buy it, bring it up in Photoshop, and it would basically, step by step, you take one picture, and then you take one picture of artwork, and then you take one picture of like splattered paint, and it kind of like double exposes them So you get the silhouette of the artwork, but now it's all splattered paint. And this it was like a virus that spread at conventions while we're talking about viruses. Suddenly, all these splatter paint artists started showing up at conventions because it required no artistic talent. You just had to know how to use this.
Yeah, you
just had to use this filter. So everybody was taking, production stills and toy art and screenshots from shows,
and running it
through this filter, and it looked like splattered paint artwork. And they were.
Here's the thing. Did look cool.
It looked cool. And that's why I'm bringing this up, because this was one of those cases. This was all like, that is official artwork and you've just run it through a filter.
So isn't that plagiarism, first of all?
Yeah, a lot of these people do get kicked out of shows. Like, it gets brought to the attention of the showrunner. Like, this person is, they're not an artist. They're a filter jockey. And
right.
Yeah, I don't think they should be an artist alley.
No, but
okay, so that's the argument.
Oh man.
But at the end of the day, that person is happy to have that piece of artwork on their wall. Yeah. It looks pretty, and they don't know how it was made.
And I use filtering of photo collage as a step in my art production. But also, I don't pretend it isn't. If someone says, "Is that a photo?" and did you cut it up and then put it together and use a filter? I say yes.
Yeah, but
if they say, "Did you paint that yourself?" Right?
But it's not just what you do. Like, that's a portion of your artwork.
It's not
all of it.
20% of the process. You
don't buy a single item like a house, of that nature. You don't buy a single print of that. You buy a print of the entire scene or whatever it is.
Sure.
Or the comic book or whatever.
So I guess my question is, and I'm not defending that guy's or girl or whoever put that together. It does feel shady, but if oh man, it's so complicated.
Okay.
What if the customer likes it? And the customer or the viewer completes the art and they believe it to be art when they see it and they hang it up in that context, you could argue it's art. If you're the guy who's painstakingly doing watercolor work and spending hundreds of hours and you're beside a guy who is like, I'll download these 10 pictures off the internet.
Bloop,
and
same thing, yeah.
Yeah, automate my filter, because you can automate Photoshop too. So you don't even have to do the work. It just like bloop, 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 does it for you.
What those sounds? What does
it's,
it?
It records your actions, and then you can replay the actions again.
Greg uses a computer. He just goes bloop, 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 every time. But here, what's the difference in price? Is there a major difference, or is it about the same?
That's it. Like, usually the filter artists are very inexpensive.
Right.
They're very,
so you get what you pay for, essentially. You're paying less because they're putting less work.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, would a print from this artist be comparable to one of your prints as far as price goes? Did you take a look at that or no? Or didn't see how much they were charging?
I didn't see how much they were charging, but usually you can tell just by looking at the booth, like, these guys probably aren't charging too much. Okay. It doesn't look like they could get away with charging much.
Right, exactly. Right, yeah. That's why.
But that's me talking from experience. I'm not the person buying these prints. It's the people who don't know the difference. They don't know the story behind the artwork.
There's that one guy who takes photos of toys.
Yes.
Right, he buys toys, takes photos of those toys, and then runs them through that same filter.
Vector trace. I think it's vector
trace or whatever. Runs it through. So it's like he's posing the toy.
Okay.
And then running through a filter. And the problem that I have with it is, having spoken directly with the individual, he lies about the process.
Oh.
I drew this. I painted it. Right? No, you didn't. Isn't this just like, I have this toy? Isn't just as opposed, and isn't this just this filter process? No, it just looks that way, but I painstakingly go. So like, that feels like a charlatan. Right.
So I think this brings up the whole, like, if you see something in a vacuum versus if you know the full story.
Right.
Like the documentary of the making of this piece of artwork versus just you seeing it with no story attached to it. They're very, very different pieces.
True.
And I think that you're correct in saying this person shouldn't be an artist alley, because that contributes to the perception that they're the artist creating this piece of work.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's so smart.
That's the issue. If he was a vendor selling this over with the other collectible vendors,
it's a mass-produced product,
right? And
it's in vendors.
Yeah, that would be different. But this person is in artist alley, which is like supposed to be all unique artists creating their own personal works. That's the issue, really.
But that also too. This is kind of why I brought it up. I know exactly how that was made. I think a lot of people, most people don't have any clue that it's not.
If you worked in graphic
traditionally
design, which is a small percentage of the population, but growing, then you see it and you go, I get it.
So because I know that backstory, that makes me kind of hate that artwork.
Yeah.
But if you didn't know the backstory behind it,
But I also have an issue with what are the
really wanted a
images?
Boba Fett art.
Well, yeah, but what are the images they're using to put through this filter? Are they paying for the images?
No.
Are they
No
so
way.
they're just grabbing an image off of the. So that's another issue with it, is that they're not paying for anything they take. They pay for Photoshop, but that's pretty much it. And so they're not, you.
But
give
like,
the
if you're a collage artist, so I'm just going to throw some shit. Like, I actually don't believe what I'm saying necessarily, but it is a valid piece of the argument. You can recognize, dear listener, someone's other side of the story without agreeing with it. So in this case, if a collage artist is using a pair of scissors, they didn't design those scissors and they didn't design that magazine, but the end result is something new.
Well, you don't get to see the scissors in the piece.
Well, this is what I'm saying. So this person, there's not a shitty argument to be made that they're using two disconnected ideas and combining them into a new piece of work. Is it derivative? Maybe. Yes. That's a matter of opinion, really.
Yeah, I just think
right. We don't like it because we make
it. All depends on what are they presenting it as though they are the artist? Are they lying about the process, or are they being honest about it? That's
what,
really
like, and how many times does that conversation actually happen?
Exactly.
Some people just don't care about. They just want that end result. They don't care about how it was made.
So I just did, as part of my writer in residency, a big collage workshop.
I saw.
It looked amazing.
I saw James Gillespie posting those.
Yeah. So we had, there was tons of people. Okay, so dear listener, what happened was I was invited to be the writer in residency at a University of Winnipeg. But because I don't just write, I also do art. I said, can I do a visual art sort of outreach to the students of the university? And there was a little, I wouldn't say pushback, but there was some reluctance. They're like, well, if we don't get everyone to sign up ahead of time, it won't work. And I said, just trust me. If I make a big art station in a place with a lot of human traffic, people's natural curiosity and the individual drive to make something from nothing will take over, and I'll be able to fill up the space and keep it busy for hours every day. They were like, okay, if you want to deal with that kind of disappointment, right? What if no one shows up? I'm fine, right? Anyway, so we did this big collage workshop, and what I did with the materials was I went through my sketchbooks, and I go through a sketchbook every month at least, photocopied a whole bunch of, like 5 or 10 copies of a whole bunch of about 100 different images, so that when people could collage them together, the line weights would match a little bit better, and you could kind of make images, at least this was my thought, that matched. Now, a person that makes that, and what I also did was I asked people to, on the surface object that they were doing, I gave them these comic cardboards, basically, they could work on, to write a secret about themselves they wouldn't want anyone else to know, and then cover it up with the artwork. It has the added bonus of turning it into a bit of a meditation, but also then they take their work with them, right? So all these people who went away very proud of the work they made, that's cut up versions of my drawings, they're still the author of that work from my perspective, even though there's literally thousands of hours of my own drawing on those tables that they're recontextualizing. The moment they put two items together that are not and did not begin in that form, as far as I'm concerned, they're the author of that work.
Okay, so they could make prints of that and sell it at a show?
Sure.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to react differently.
No.
Defending the splatter artists.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, no, I actually find the splatter artists to be like reprehensible, and I don't know.
I think it's because of the misdirection you're talking about. Like they're misrepresenting what they're doing. I think if they're honest about it, you wouldn't have a problem with it.
True.
They won't recognize me.
They don't recognize me.
I don't recognize you.
So my soapbox about art is that intent matters.
Yeah.
Right? That if you're clear about your intentions and you state your intent, it's why they have the idea of the artist's statement, right? Is so that even if you don't get the art, then you can peek down to the bottom of the frame and read the artist's statement and be like, okay, I don't agree, but at least I understand, right? That's what I feel about these that's missing. Is that the context of it in Artist Alley, you put the finger on it that actually I wasn't able to express properly. Because they're in Artist Alley, they're claiming to be the artist of the work, but they're not actually trying to make art with clear intent. They're trying to make money.
The intent is to make money.
Right. They didn't make the art first
Yeah.
and then say, oh, I made all this art and I love making art and maybe someone will like it. They said, here's a big group of people that I might be able to trick into buying this.
Yep, it's opportunistic.
It feels wrong,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep,
But maybe I'm wrong too.
Well, we'll let you know if any of those guys show up at FanQuest and book tables.
Now, the next question I have, and I'll preface this by saying this is pure, this is hearsay. I don't know if this is true, but wasn't it Spock Vega
Yes.
was also doing this?
Yeah. Yeah, he was one of the ones that got kicked out or asked to stop doing
At
it.
a show,
yeah.
right. Now, allegedly, we don't really know the whole details. We just feel like we saw it set up, and then suddenly it was gone, and it seemed to
No,
be a whole bunch
he
of this
lasted a
splatter stuff.
while, but like he'd been coming to shows as a cosplayer, and he was selling just photos of him cosplaying with other cosplayers and stuff
Right.
and then suddenly he had all this artwork, and it doubled like every show he did. He was just pumping out like, dozens of pieces a week.
Oh, this guy's been here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, if you
I'm just
know
looking it
or are Spock Vega and you think that we totally just misrepresented you, reach out and we will happily state a retraction.
Okay, so I've met him. He came to C4 a number of certainly came more than 1 year, but he does look a lot like Leonard Nimoy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So he took that kind of natural resemblance and then turned it into cosplay, which
Yeah.
is fine. But then what did he do with the art? What's the
He
art
started doing that splatter art, and
Oh.
I went up to organizers at a certain show, and I said, like, do you guys know like
How
the
this is
story of like how this is getting done? And I kind of explained it. They're like, you're not the first person to bring this to our attention, and we're gonna look into it for. And then he didn't show up.
Okay, to
after
further
that.
complicate this argument, cosplay is taking a natural resemblance, right, and then combining it with other elements so that people understand that you're supposed to look like a specific
It
character.
doesn't always have to be natural resemblance.
No, sure,
Sometimes
but
people do it.
Was there any of that
At its
artwork on
heart-
his?
I just saw a photo of him on thing. I didn't see any artwork.
But at its heart,
Because
cosplay
it's-
is
he's ashamed.
also a recontextualization of a property. You don't have the authority to do that.
Yeah.
But I love cosplayers.
Well, here's what I see a lot of
So
cosplayers
I guess
doing.
I'm a hypocrite is what I'm getting
You
at.
are. We
Yeah.
established that episodes ago, many episodes ago.
Okay.
No, I'm
Fair
just
enough.
joking. But
We're
so
not just one thing.
So the cosplay equivalent of this, in my mind, is, and I do see this. There are photographers here in the city who offer services where they'll take a photo of somebody in cosplay at a con. I've done this at FanQuest and other conventions, and they'll take that, and for a fee, they'll add a background, and maybe they'll make it look like the person's on the cover of a comic book. Of
Yeah,
that
cool.
thing, right? So that's kind of it makes them feel more like the superhero they're playing.
Right.
Or they'll add like My Hero Academia if it's one of those characters.
Right.
So they'll add maybe some more effects like a fireball if you're dressed up like Ryu from Street Fighter or something.
Right.
They'll add that kind of stuff, and that is the finished product. That becomes a print that those cosplayers might sell at a convention, but they're paying the photographer for the service, and they're doing the cosplay themselves. They're creating that costume themselves. They're posing for the photo. It is them in the photo. Is this not what this guy
So
did?
one could argue that they are the author of that work, but in this case, no. This is just like random images downloaded from the internet and then put through a splatter
He
filter.
was doing that. So like half his table, no, like a quarter of his table was like his cosplay stuff and cosplay photos, and then the other half became this huge splatter art collection that was stolen images from the internet put through that
Star
filter.
Trek. It was a Star Trek, or was
No, it was everything.
Oh, okay.
That was
Okay.
it. He found out he could make money on it, so he just ran with it and
okay.
ticked a lot of people off.
So the hypocrisy alarm goes off again.
Yep.
What about our own fan art?
Yeah.
Isn't that
that's,
also-
So that's this whole reason I brought this up.
Yeah,
Like
'cause
the
it's
consumer
complicated. Yeah.
sees a piece that I spent 30 hours on and sees this other splatter artist thing that he pumped out in 2.8 minutes.
Right.
And both bring them joy.
Yeah.
What if I ran a workshop on how to use the splatter vector for people
To turn anyone into an
do
artist.
it yourself?
Well, I mean, you can teach a calligraphy workshop. We teach comic making
Yeah.
workshops.
Yeah.
Why not?
So we'll do
Yeah.
that. That'll put those people out of business.
Oh, like just make everyone be able to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not special anymore.
Yeah. Well, there's one way of getting at it, right? You kind of just cut them off and say, well, anybody can do this. Or you stand in front of his
Splatter
table.
art masterclass with Dan Vadeboncoeur.
Yeah, you stand in front of his table and you hand it. You know what? You can do this yourself. Don't worry about it. For $5 less, you can just pay me to teach you how to do it.
But then the market decides, right?
Well, that's true.
That-
But
okay,
the problem is the market is uneducated. That's what Justin's saying. They don't know.
But they'll always be uneducated.
Wow.
Sorry, dear listener, if I'm not. It just And there are lots of things I don't know anything about, right? If I walk into a car place,
this makes me think of like
things.
I have like a little bit of a beef, not a beef. The Mona Lisa is not famous because it's an amazing painting. Like, it is an amazing painting, but the Louvre is chock full of amazing paintings.
Yeah.
The Mona Lisa is famous because it's been stolen and it's been in like every movie since the 70s.
We know about it. It's
Everybody,
a famous
it's a super
painting.
famous painting.
It's a celebrity.
Like, there's
It's
so
an
many
interesting
stories
story
connected
behind
to it.
Nobody quite knows the story of the person
Yeah.
in the paintings.
Yeah.
Part of
Right. Is it
That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
mystery of it.
Yeah.
Why is she smiling? Like, there's that whole thing. There's a whole thing around it,
Right.
right?
But there are
But is that just clever
thousands
marketing?
of paintings that are just as good and some a lot better and some, but like, so why that painting?
Yeah, I've been to the Hermitage
Yeah.
in St. Petersburg, where there's 800 rooms, the size of our studio, full of only masterpieces,
Wow.
Yeah.
right? And you just wander through, just mouth agape at the just sheer creative willpower and force on display. Like, it literally brings you to tears. Like, I can say that there were times when you just feel like it can't possibly get better or more, emotional than this, and you turn the corner and a painting or a sculpture or something would just seize you.
Are these all famous paintings?
Yeah, from all over, like all, Catherine the Great, and I'm sure the armies of Russia had something to do with collecting all of this work into one place.
Yeah.
But it's, and yet, if any of those were counterfeit or like prints or like, would I know the difference? If I felt that deep feeling, right? And someone was like, actually, that's just a Photoshop splatter painting.
And the artist like ate children as a hobby, suddenly
Yeah, it
that
changes your
painting is
context of
very,
work.
very different for you.
This is the premise of every art museum heist movie, where they replace the real thing with a fake and nobody notices. I think it's
Mr. Bean movie?
The Thomas.
No, you were talking about the Mr. Bean movie. Well,
Thomas Crown Affair.
Okay, there's that too. I
that
suppose.
one too. Yeah.
No, but you're right. No, like, you wouldn't notice, and in my mind, it doesn't matter if it's a recreation of the art or the real thing. It's just a matter of looking at that composition, and if it says something to you,
Right.
that means something. Up on the screen here, you guys have your Netflix thing rotating, your Netflix screensavers.
They are not a sponsor.
No, one of them is though. You'll see it come up in a second. It's Steve Martin and Martin
love
Short,
it. Yeah.
and it's obviously a parody of American Gothic.
Yes.
Let's
Yeah,
say
yeah.
American Gothic. So, and that's a very famous painting. It's in Chicago, the Art Institute of Chicago, which I'm going to with my students in a couple months. And so everyone wants to flock to see that painting,
Right.
Because they have, there's so much attached to it in their
Yes.
mind already.
And it doesn't say anything to me. I've seen it once. I'm like, okay, whatever. So every time I go there, I've been there a couple times now to that art institute. I pick a different aspect of that because that's a huge museum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you go find other things.
So much, but yeah, that's the one everyone wants to see. That and Nighthawks, which I actually like. I like Nighthawks.
Nighthawks at the Diner, yeah.
It's a fun painting. Well, not really, but I think it really.
It's been parodied.
Yes, that's kind of its place in pop culture is funny.
Like, I've
So-
seen probably
yeah.
literally 1,000 versions of that
So
painting.
does that mean those parodies are not real art, or what's the?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, parody is an art in and of itself.
It is, yes.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. I am your detective for the evening. Please don't leave the premises. I said nobody leave. Am I speaking in some kind of strange foreign language?
One of the legalities of fan art is as soon as you defend yourself, if someone comes with you and says like, hey, this is a cease and desist, and you stop, then there's no problem. If you continue, the only way to continue is by fighting back, by getting a lawyer and claiming that it's parody.
Right. Well, that means you have to significantly change it.
Right. So it
You
has
have to change the intent.
and there it is. The intent of the piece must change, right? So, and that really has a lot to do with the emotional content of a piece, right? In order to, how you convince the jury, right, that it feels differently is you show them both, and one makes you feel happy and it's funny, and one makes you feel differently. Well, then you can say those are separate works. That's parody, right? But
Acoustic
it's
cover of a
yeah,
heavy metal band, right?
yeah, right. It's a really weird world.
It is, and it's unfortunately, like, fan art is also a way for a lot of young artists to get started in a way that makes the money. That's kind of how you got started, right? With your stuff. You did a lot of fan art, and then you started doing your own stuff. But in the beginning, that's really what you did.
And it's the cover band argument.
Well, they have that attachment to that property, right? It's like, oh, that's Darth Vader. Darth Vader's been a part of my life since my childhood, and I have all these memories and all these things attached to it. It's like a famous thing for me, so I gravitate to that painting of it.
Now you do Darth Vader in a different way. You have your own personal spin on it.
Yeah.
Right? So
but it's also been a part of your life that whole time. So when you express that, you're expressing with the intent that this has been a part of my life. And then that's the part that connects with those other people.
I'm trying to do the acoustic cover of Star Wars.
Yeah. And we've gotten many times, both of us, where people come to us and say, oh, you do this and this. Do this one and you'll make money. And if it's a property that neither Justin and I are that interested in, we have no history with, we have no connection to, we just don't. Even though a lot of people will say this is the hot piece right now.
You guys have talked about this in the past on how people will try and ride the trend of certain hot topics, like Spider-Man last year because of Into the Spider-Verse.
Right.
You saw a lot of Spider-Man stuff come out. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily hold true that they made a lot of money by creating Spider-Man pieces.
Right.
Right? If you're not a fan of Spider-Man, why would you draw Spider-Man?
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
What's the big one now? I'm trying to think. I should know
It'll
this.
be Baby Yoda and Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, Baby Yoda
is still going.
Yeah.
Like that. The funny thing about that is that there was not any legitimate merchandise on the shelves when that came out.
Yeah.
Like they kept it such a secret that even people inside Lucasfilm didn't know, and so they didn't have any toys ready to go. So now the toys are coming out like months after the show ended. So I think it's a bit late, to be honest. But there's still lots of fan art out there. I bought a Baby Yoda card from graphic design students. Did a design greeting cards. So I bought a Baby Yoda Valentine.
Cute.
It was very cute.
So if you're a fan artist, at what point, and you're doing, like you're trying to make a living, you're doing your own work, you're doing some derivative work, you're doing some fan art, you're not sure what your worth is as an artist. How do you then know what your worth is as an artist?
I think Drake and I were having this conversation. We're like, if you're doing conventions and you're doing well, you are the perfect incubation situation to be making your own thing.
Yes.
You're out there, you're slinging artwork, people are paying attention to your artwork. Now you need to invest what you're making into that original project because nobody's going to come along and pay you for it, but they kind of are now because you're selling this fan art. Pump that money into that original project.
Making your own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which for us was Casting Tong.
Yeah. And that worked out great.
Rust and Water.
That
Dragon
machine
Nanny,
is still going.
Guarantee, right? That's us saying, okay, let's make our own things.
Yeah.
But there's this also, okay, so I believe that how you figure out, so I'm at the university, I'm speaking to lots of classes, everyone's asking, how do you decide what to charge for things? And what I usually tell the people, my encapsulated like quippy answer was, if you won't do it for free, you'll never get paid to do it. And that seems like a paradox. But if you're not already working on it all the time because you're obsessed, you'll never get good enough that anyone would offer. Well, how do I know when to charge? And this is the lens in which I think you should look at it. When you have to initiate the project, and it's always your idea, you'll probably have to do it for free. But the moment somebody else asks you to do that thing, they see its value, and you should charge for it, right? So if I want to work on a graphic novel with you, right, and it's my idea.
Wait, isn't this exactly what happened with you and me? Exactly. I came to you with a graphic novel idea, but I'd never done one, so you were like, yeah, buzz off, kid.
Right? But the people who stick with it, right, and then are asked to do it, right, that's where that value comes in. Like when Underworld is a great example of that. When I first wanted to work with Laverne Kazursky, he was like, get out of here, kid. You're no good, right? And then here's some ways you could improve. And then he watched me improve and then came to me and said, we have a publisher attached. I'd like to offer this to you. And what is your page rate, right? So you charge when it's other people's idea that you do that work. And when it's always your idea, well, that just might be you practicing, right?
Nobody's going to bust down the door and say, hey, you artist who's never done a graphic novel, I want to pay you to do a graphic.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen.
And again, now this falls right into that fan art discussion where I was talking with the DC editors, and that one in particular said to me, I was like, hey, I want to do a Dead Man book. I would be perfect for it. They're like, well, I don't know. Show me. I was like, well, look at all this work I've done. This is perfect for Deadman. They're like, no, we don't have an imagination at the editorial level. You got to show me pages of Deadman. Do 5-6 pages of this comic in your style, and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
Well, that's free work, right? So if you're not going to look at that as a way to improve your own comic book storytelling, I'm making comic pages anyway every day. For me, it's no sweat to do a few pages on spec. But if you're standing there saying, well, I won't work unless you pay me for everything, well, then how are you ever getting better?
Yeah. And even when you get to the point where people are going to offer you jobs, they're going based on your past work. They're looking at what you've done in the past. So you have to build up a portfolio of stuff. And how else are you going to do that unless you do it for free? Right. And
also remember that the term masterpiece, right? The actual etymology of that term is the piece that you show your master to show that you no longer need to train with them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right? That's you as an apprentice saying, here is my masterpiece. I'm showing to my master that I'm now ready to leave their service.
That's interesting because I always thought of that term as being the pinnacle of anybody's
the
work.
epitome of
my masterpiece. This is my masterpiece. It's the best thing I've ever done in the world.
It's showing that they don't have...
go on to do other things after that.
Right.
That the better piece is always the next one.
Always the next one. Almost as if you're chasing it.
Yeah.
Right? Chasing artwork.
No, I'm not going to speak to specific details yet because these aren't finalized, but I have got some podcast work now out of this podcast. I'm helping you.
Oh, yeah. Perfect thing, right?
Can we talk? That's not what you had in mind here?
No, but that's great. Yeah. So that's even better. Because it's not about my ego, it's about your accomplishments. So see, it's way better. You've been doing podcasting. And okay, so let's rewind for the dear listener. When Justin and I said we might do a podcast, and we put a call out on social media, the reason why he picked you, Dan, is that you said, of all the people that reached back to us, I do this for fun already.
Yeah, I do. I've been doing this since 2011.
Right? And so from our perspective, it's like, even if it crashes and burns, at least we'll have all had fun. Right. And that'll be the reason we did it.
Yeah. And so, again, like I've been doing it for a long time as far as my own personal podcasts. And I teach it in Red River College. That's why I started doing it. Actually, that's why I started doing it, is to learn about it so I could teach it. That's really what it was. And it was becoming this huge thing now. Everybody listens to podcasts. And it's becoming this huge media platform. And then you guys reached out, and I thought, well, this is a great way to get involved in stuff other than my own personal stuff. Right. Like it was never a thing where I was going to, although I think I was the first guest on the show, but it was never going to be about me. I was just kind of learning from you guys is really my whole thing.
Yeah. Our very first episode was, so we're going to start a podcast. How do we do it?
Right. That's right. Yeah. So, my reasons, again, I wanted to get better. I wanted to get kind of a more variety of work. And this kind of presented an opportunity. So I do not charge you guys for the stuff I do for you. I do not. You don't pay me in money.
Coffee.
You used to pay me in coffee, but then we switched to the afternoons, and I don't take coffee anymore.
And then our quid pro quo now has been trying to help out in promoting FanQuest and doing stuff related to something that is your baby.
Yes.
Right?
Again, another thing I do for free. I don't do FanQuest for money.
Yeah.
But you guys are going to help me with programming, and your guests there, and you're going to put together content for me, for people to do, things for people to do at FanQuest, which is invaluable to me. That's like the whole point of the convention.
Almost like community matters. But as a result, maybe a piece of the story that you don't know is the person that asked you to come and pitch them this podcast opportunity had said to me, listening to your podcast over the last while, man, it's improved so much. You guys really you seem to know more what you're doing than for sure when you started.
Okay,
right?
Good to hear.
And I said, well, that's really Dan giving us pointers a little along the way and suggesting some things and suggesting hey, here's a little bit better gear, don't talk so far away from the microphone, stop telling me, just obvious things that seem obvious. But it is
to enunciate your point.
That's right. You hit the table to enunciate your point. And then that person said, we have a podcast thing that we want to do. They reached out to you.
Yes.
So how much can you tell about that story?
I don't know how much I can tell about it. We just had our first meeting on it today. So really, it's very, very early on. And we'll talk about it when it comes to fruition. But it's really cool.
But this is for money.
It is for money. Yeah, they're going to pay me money.
What did I tell you? You look so right together, I want to double my fee.
One of the things that I've figured out, and maybe the dear listener can benefit from this, is that whenever someone asks you to quote on something, I give 3 prices, right? A low, medium, and a high, and I build out the services related to that. There's a Cadillac version that's prohibitively expensive, a medium version that's sort of seems reasonable on all counts, and then a quick version, which is also, if you just tally the hours, expensive, but not that expensive, but for me, not that much time either.
Okay.
Right? And when I'm doing speaking, when I'm asked to do speaking, I give these 3 versions. I can speak all day on a big workshop. That's the Cadillac. You get books, you get prints, you get all this free stuff, quote unquote free, but the organization that brings me in will pay for it. Or there's a 3-hour version that I can do, which is like the middle version. And then there's a 40-minute version that I can do. Mm-hmm. And so if you're looking at it as an organization bringing me in to speak or talk about storytelling, the middle one seems like the most economical.
Yeah, that's a very common way of doing that. That's even for like all kinds of products. They do that different tiered system.
Yeah. We do that at the table too. We try to have the prints are kind of our bread and butter. So we try to have items that are much more expensive and some cheaper items as well. Yeah. So that medium.
Yeah, a canvas on the table that's $400, and then a print of that same canvas, which is now $20, to a person who just loves the work, but can't afford or doesn't want to afford or wants to use that money for something more important to them, can spend a $20,
right?
And have the art.
But then eventually you will sell that canvas.
Eventually, but this is to say that not all art is at every price point is for every consumer, right? People come to it with what they're able to do. So I guess if you're going to spend $10 on a splatter Photoshop print, I guess it's fine.
As long as they're being clear about what it is.
Yeah.
My question for you, though, is what did you do when you first started out? Because that's the question. When people approached you, like we've talked about day rates and that kind of stuff in the past, but do you remember the first time somebody asked you to do something? How did you quote them? How did you figure out how much that was worth?
You mean like for speaking?
For art maybe. I don't know.
You go to the internet, and the internet will give you that formula, right? Like, okay, well, here's minimum wage, and like,
what you did?
Yeah. Like I had no idea. We'd gone over it. It was they might go over it a little more detailed now in graphic design, but back then it was like we had one class on like how to charge for your work. So you go to the internet and they tell you, okay, well, minimum wage is this, and then how much is your time worth? And so times that plus this, blah blah blah, and so it works out to like you need to be charging $70 an hour, but like you're 18 and you kind of suck at what you do. No client should really be paying you that. Like you're not worth that yet. Yeah. Someday.
Well, but you would be if you worked all the time for free on your own stuff and your portfolio was full of really hardworking work. Can you say that? Hardworking work? I am a writer, I promise. But there's so much to unpack in that. One of the things I was going to say about that is, so when I was asked to do artwork for the first time for money, I was probably 1,000 pages of published artwork in.
Okay.
I had already been at the shows, producing work. People were paying me for it as a product already before someone said, come and do this in a book.
Okay.
So it changes my relationship with it. But like with speaking about making things, I can tell you about that I remember the first time because I believe that you can't be what you can't see, so you want to go into schools as often as possible. Schools don't have huge budgets, so whenever I could, we would do it gratis when I was first starting out. Like if I had the time, I'd go visit a school.
What's gratis?
Free, right?
Okay, just clarifying.
Yeah. So I would do it for free. French. But also because for me, as a person who was a classroom teacher, talking in front of a group is no big deal.
Right. Yeah.
So
some people hate that.
Some people are terrified by it, so that's why they charge so much, right? People would rather die than public speak. They charge a lot. I wasn't like, so it's no big deal. But I can remember when John Toon and I started doing some workshops. We said, okay, we're going to book these workshops. We're going to tell people how we make books, but we're going to advertise it as two guys who are starting out who've made a lot of mistakes. Our intent was important. We didn't first say, come to our workshop about making books because we're experts.
You'll get rich.
Yeah, we said, come to our workshops about making books. We've made 2 books, and here's a list of mistakes that we made that we can tell you about. And that was it felt so honest because we weren't like, oh, we're great and pay us to be here. It was, man, we suck, right? Don't do this. Here's a list of things we did badly.
Yeah.
Right? And after that, it really changed my relationship with what you're charging for. And again, that intent, right? What you're pretending to be versus what you are, right? You should try to make those two things as close as possible, right? Mm-hmm. It's why when we do workshops, we talk about the numbers of the books and what it costs to produce them and how many shows we had to do to break even and all that kind of stuff. So that you're not just saying, hey, it's success all the time. You're saying, no, a job is work and this is a job. Our product is art. Here's how we sustain being creative, right? Mm-hmm. So it's different.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in it's not going to make you money day one. It's going to take a lot of hours and a lot of time and a lot of effort. And it's going to be your side hustle for a long time before you're ready to make it your main hustle. And I think both of us had it as a side hustle long enough that we knew it was sustainable. We were not taking a big leap in a big financial risk. We knew how the money could come in and where it was coming in. And
we had done thousands of hours of essentially free work for stuff we just couldn't get out of our heads.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And that's for you too.
Yeah.
Right?
Pretty much. Mm-hmm. Just not in the same form, but
different format, but same thing. And it's just because it's in you to do. It's like a compulsion. Really where, we have a mental illness of some sort. The output is artwork instead of, some other thing.
Neurological condition, 60% probability. Manic depression, 42% probability. Attention deficit disorder, 89% probability. Heart disorder, 99% probability.
How was your TV meeting, Greg? I don't know what.
How do you segue? So out of All Access, we met with some.
Sounds like you had a gun to your head. Ask me now.
That's your TV meeting. It was strange. It was really interesting because after All Access, it was a bunch of TV producers.
Yes, you spoke about that in a previous episode.
Yeah, All Access was just like a meet and greet thing that Manitoba puts on to connect TV people and film people with, people who make content. So a couple of content hungry producers that are here in Winnipeg, I've had some follow-up meetings with. And one of them was really interesting because I brought some stuff for all ages. I brought some stuff for like what would really be the CW market, like teen plus. I brought some stuff that is horror. No, but like you get the idea, right? Stuff that's for the horror market, stuff for science fiction, like a pretty broad spectrum. Which is like how I think about stories. Like if it's going to make me afraid, then it's a horror story. If it's going to make me feel love, then it's a kid's story, right? Like where you need it, where you need that catharsis. So I just brought this sort of spread. But what they all had in common is they all had a clear chain of title to me, right? They were all properties that were not tied up with anybody else's contracts, with anything, that if they wanted to have a talk about it and wanted to offer me some huge amount of money, which isn't how that works, dear listeners, then it was possible. But what I found so valuable is something we've also talked about on previous podcasts, is each of those products, I had the slug line figured out for, what it was and who it was for. And it made the conversation so natural and simple because that's really what
it was. This meets this?
Yeah, I did that, but also the basic breakdown, like, Infinitum is a time travel murder mystery, right? Simple, not verbose, not trying to shoehorn in all the vagaries of the story, just like it's obviously science fiction and it's murder mystery. And if you're interested in more, we can talk about more, but that's fine, right? And the way that conversation flowed as a result through the available properties, we only touched on the very surface of what any of them were. And it was only when one of those surfaces lined up with something that a network had told them they were looking for. Because remember, these are people in the middle. They're looking to connect one end of the chain to the other end of the chain. It was just when those things, that's when it was, tell me more about this. And I didn't just start spewing. I said, and I think this is valuable advice for anyone else who might be in that position. I didn't just start spewing. I said, what is it that the network's been asking you for that you think this connects to? So then they gave me the 5 things, right? The networks, all the hot button topics, which gives me a moment to say, what of those specific things are in my story? I will only bring up those things. You can get in this horrible habit of telling the whole story to a person who actually isn't interested in the whole story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They just want to know if it fits. And then as a result of that, I saw that one of the, on the table in that office was a whole bunch of scripts just stacked. Lots of notes too, sticky notes. Like, it was very clear, a bunch of broken scripts. And one of the things that we're trying to do in the studio here is build a writer's room that can fix that stuff. And so I took that opportunity to say, like, we have our own content, but we can also fix other people's content.
Mm-hmm.
And
script doctor.
Right? Sort of. I said we have an idea machine that we can drop your script into. Give us 3 days and X amount of dollars, and it'll come out the other end better. And the moxie, I could tell, of that suggestion landed in just the right way.
Oh, good. Okay.
Right?
I thought you were going to...
Right?
I thought you offended the whole table.
Right? I didn't say it would be a work of genius. I said, like, because a script ends up with maybe 20 or 30 notes that make it unproducible.
Right.
I bet we can cut that in half in 3 days. Right? Mm-hmm. That's worth money to a production person. Mm-hmm. And like what we do in this freaking studio, like I'm looking behind Justin, there are 15 unproduced projects that are tacked to the board that we could put into production when we want. I have another 13, 20 on that other board over there. Mm-hmm. And so it just becomes this like mental game of, if you want this, we'll do this one first. It's not saying, give me your ideas. We'll do that. It's give me what the network is looking for, and we'll pick one of our ideas that fits that. Mm-hmm. And then that's fine. That'll be what we're working on now. And not to try and get so caught up in your idea being perfect. Because you can always just put a splatter filter on it and it'll get better, I guess is what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
So more news on that as it develops. But one of the fun things that happened was they said, well, we have this one idea that we can't figure out something for. And it happened to correspond perfectly to a story that a buddy of mine told me once. And I said, oh, I have the perfect idea for that. Here it is. And the look of like utter shock, like it was pure coincidence that the thing they asked for was an idea that I kind of already had, and I just sort of paired it up, like took a breath. And so I was like, well, off the top of my head, this is what I would do to fix that. And it's meant a number of follow-up things. And so it's just, if you're good at stories and you're good at saying like, I can make it up, and that idea, if you don't like it, I can make up something else, then, you probably have
You're adaptable.
Yeah, you have to be adaptable. And that's what, really this whole thing, you at shows, Justin, having to explain what every piece of work is about when people don't get it, mm-hmm. right? And having to, for other people, justify how or why it exists has made you super adaptable in adjusting what the story means for what person, right? And I think that there is this whole group of people at shows that don't realize they've been training for this for the last 5-10 years, right? And that once TV and movie people realize that there's just these idea machines sitting all over shows, I think a new job will be invented.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I think. At least that's what I hope.
Cool.
So,
just help me out for a sec. What is Dragon Nanny? It's Wally meets Fern Gully?
Oh, what is Dragon Nanny? Yeah, we haven't done that step yet.
No. It's definitely got Wally.
That should be a whole episode.
That should be a whole episode.
That should be a whole episode.
Yeah, I don't know. How would it be Fern Gully?
It's kind of about nature kind of writing itself. Okay. Yeah.
It's Free Willy? No. Tune in next episode where we will story break the slug line of Dragon Nanny, a story that we have been working on for years and only now have realized we don't know what it's about.
What, 2 years?
Yeah, at least 2 years. This has been Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made, encouraging you to join the fight and make comics.